You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is the Waystation, your source for Star Wars news and rumors. Today is March 17th, 2024. It's St. Paddy's Day, which I don't think is celebrated in Star Wars land, but we'll celebrate here nonetheless. And who better to celebrate March 17th than a true Canadian? Ed, welcome to the show. Hey, you got your green on, which is surprising. I totally forgot.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Oh, that wasn't planned?
No, it was on the top of the pile.
Yeah. How you doing, man?
I guess it doesn't get celebrated in Star Wars because it's in a galaxy from long ago, right?
Oh, so he's not born yet.
So yeah, there was no St. Patrick at the time. So how could they celebrate St. Patrick's Day?
Exactly. No, I didn't think that one through. I'm glad you were here to pull us out of it, because I'm trying to think if there's like an equivalent of it anywhere, even in Legends, and I can't think of anything that comes to mind. But hey, nonetheless, they
drink like a bunch of ale. I don't know. I was about to say Klingon ale. I'm like, no, that's the wrong one.
Yeah, no Klingons, not yet. Anyways, we haven't found that galaxy.
Oh.
How's it going, man? How are you doing?
Good, man. Been having a relaxed day. I didn't really celebrate St. Patrick's Day. I did celebrate Stone Cold Steve Austin Day yesterday.
Oh, 316. Yeah.
Drank a couple Steve Weisers, but today we're good. Today we're fine.
Great. Yeah, it's been a while. We haven't done one of these in about a month. Just because
I got locked out of my building, and you had your headphones chewed up or something?
Yeah, my cat chewed through headphones, and you were locked out of your building, and we were like, all right, there's something that a greater power telling us that this isn't going to happen tonight. So we deferred, but we're nonetheless, hey, we're back now. So hey, before we get started into some of the news here, definitely want to say thank you to all of our Patreon members, especially our now part of the tribe members, which are Rob, Mike Borda, Lauren, Dante, Riss Bayless, Justin Jackson, Sharkman Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, Josh C, Jacob, Reader Reborn, and our newest member, Jamie, who just joined This Is the Way tier. So thank you, Jamie, for joining that tier. And also want to say thank you to our Delusions of Grandeur members, which are Rod, CJ, Alex, Steve, and Daz. Man, I'll talk to Daz in the next show. He's Manchester United played at Liverpool, who I wear this hat for every week, and we didn't win. So he's already been talking crap. No, he's been very professional online, but I'll talk to him more later. But hey, don't forget, after this, Jonesy and I will be back to talk about the Believers, which are the Clone X troopers from the Bad Batch that we've seen here in season 3. We're going to revisit a topic that we did almost a year ago to this day, and kind of just say, hey, look, here's an update. Here's where we think things are going. Speculate on who the mysterious Clone X agent is that we saw at the very end of the last episode here, or I guess through all of the episode there. So that'd be a lot of fun. And then just a quick programming note, we'll, of course, have shows on Thursday, and then we'll come back on next Sunday. And for another show, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, we've got Patreon next Sunday, and I think Lauren and I are coming back to do something, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, head out to cantinacast.com/YouTube or youtube.com/cantinacast if you want to sign up and see all the, subscribe, get the alerts, and just know whenever we go live for all of our shows. All right. I think I got through most of that. Let's talk. Hey, Lauren is in with us, as well as Jonesy. So, hey, guys, thanks for being here. And yes, Defy the Storm is what we've got coming up to discuss. So, all right, let's get right into the news, because this is kind of what we wanted to talk about 2 weeks ago. So it's a little aged, but nonetheless, I think it's still relevant. And I've got some pretty serious questions about this. So EA has recently announced that they've laid off 5% of their workforce, right? So you do the math. Comes out to about 670 jobs. They've got a total of like 13,400 people that are currently employed. And I just want to read this quote here, because the lead to this story is that they've scrapped the Mandalorian first-person shooter game. Now, you and I talked about this on a show last month. And within the next week, like the very next week after we talked about it on this show, or within a couple days, I think, as a matter of fact, they canceled it. They canceled the whole show, or the whole video game. So the quote out of this article, the one that stood out to me that's relevant to Star Wars, in my opinion, is This guy, who was this joker that was talking about here? Andrew Wilson, who's the EA CEO, went on to say, we are also sunsetting games and moving away from development of future licensed IPs that we do not believe will be successful in our changing industry. The greater focus allows us to drive creativity, accelerate innovation, and double down on our biggest opportunities, including our own IP, sports, and massive online communities to deliver the entertainment players want today and tomorrow. So I guess the question that I have, given that we were showing, like I think we talked about, and we'll talk about it again here. I want to just kind of talk about the potential of what this game possibly was bringing. Yeah. But how is it that EA can look at their full catalog of games? And don't get me wrong, I understand they've got a lot of irons in the fire, right? But the Mandalorian first-person shooter kind of game, and not the Mandalorian, but a Mandalorian first-person shooter game, how does that make the scrapping, the cutting board on this thing?
Yeah, I don't get it. Like of all the games, it feels like a slam dunk. I was like going through like the list of Star Wars games ever released, and I don't think like there's a lot of them. If you go to like Wikipedia, it's a long list. And I was just like, I don't think there's ever been like a Mandalorian based game. And I really always thought it would be kind of cool to have it kind of, I don't know, like GTA or like Diablo, where you're just going around doing missions and you're building up your armor, and that would kind of be like the ecosystem you'd live in. And I just don't understand how that wouldn't make the money. Now, I don't know their finances. I don't know. Maybe Star Wars doesn't make them a lot of money. Maybe, you know, it's Madden and it's FIFA or whatever FIFA is being called this year, or whatever other sports games are the bulk of what's making the money. But you think like, well, why would you have the Star Wars IP if you're not going to go make some games? And like from the beginning of the Mandalorian, it felt like they were just dropping the ball on making money off of this thing. You think of like how long it took to get like Grogu toys and Grogu merchandise, and they said, oh, we wanted him to be a surprise. He was like at the end of the first episode. Like,
right.
Like it's not a spoiler. It just it's like they don't know what they have with this franchise. And I don't know, they're the ones speaking to it. And this is a company in EA that I looked up. Like they made in 2023 $802 million. That's net income. That's not revenue. That's not gross. Their gross revenue is $7.42 billion, but their net income was $802 million, and they're going to lay off 5% of their workforce. It's up from last year, by the way. It wasn't like it wasn't even down. It was up from the year before.
Yeah. This doesn't make any sense to me too. One Up versus CPU says there was a game called Bounty Hunter you played as Django. I remember that game. Quite honestly, it was more focused around the movies, but. On that note, there's this article's out there as well. This is from Insider Gaming. This is actually got a good kind of firsthand knowledge of what the game was. Like this is actually speaking to people that were close to it over there and working on it. And just to kind of wet your whistle that won't ever be blown here. The game started with the Den, which was the player's base of operations that contains your ship, a map of the galaxy, an upgrade station, an armory, and more. It's understood that there would be, you would be here, you would select the bounties you wanted to pursue, and the player would then equip the weapons they wanted, upgrade their armor, go into their ship, land on a planet, and that's where the bounty was located. And then it goes on to say how, you know, the combat was, you know, you could use your jetpacks, there was some sliding, you could jump into the air. There were some takedown things where you could, you know, similar to, they call that Doom, but, you know, a number of games do this now where you get close to a boss or a character and it goes into a series of moves, depending on the button combination. It then also said that most of the people that you did fight were stormtroopers. But, you know, there were bosses in here, like an ATST at one point. You kind of had to take one of those down. So, I mean, it sounded like, oh, by the way, it was for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and the PC. So all three of those were currently in development. So, I mean, just on paper, it looks like this is a slam dunk. Like, I mean, there are people like us that are probably going to go buy it just because it has a freaking Star Wars, you know, name on it. So I think you and I were kind of talking before we came on the air, just very briefly. Do you think maybe the game was just sucked and was terrible and they realized that, okay, look, we got to cut somewhere. And although we don't want to slice our throats necessarily because it's a Star Wars IP, you know, let's offload this game. But I guess the question that I have is when he says that they want to focus on IPs that are, I don't remember the wording, but basically the ones that are relevant to people, is Star Wars not relevant? Does that say anything about the current state of Star Wars video games or even the franchise itself right now if they're willing to cut something like a Mandalorian first-person shooter game?
Yeah, like you said, like maybe they just through testing, like it is glitchy as hell. They didn't have like a grasp on it. Like they had a good concept, but like whatever they were working on was just not working. Is Outlaws out yet, or is that
No, still coming out later this year.
still coming out? Like maybe they just were like, all right, we have these two games in development. Outlaws is probably going to be the better game. Let's just go with that. And like let's focus on the one thing. Because also, like if you release too many properties at the same time, not both of them aren't going to make money, right? Like everybody's kind of short on money at this moment. And if you're gonna release two Star Wars games that are, feel almost similar, whichever one is the better one, that's what you're releasing. So yeah. I don't know.
Well, Matthew,
we're never gonna see it. We're never gonna find out. We'll get remakes of old games instead.
Exactly, which don't even work. We'll get to that here in a little bit too. But Matthew Hughes says that you guys jinxed it. So I think that's got to be the most logical explanation. But I also said companies only care about profit margins and not customers or employees. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And Jonesy says they were probably feeling threatened by hunters. Ha ha ha. That's a joke too, because no one should feel threatened by hunters because the game is not out yet and refuses to come out. So, sorry, let me check. Gary said, yeah, this whole thing stinks of executive leveraging better payouts for losses to collect on insurance or other compensation protection. So, yeah. White collar crimes, man.
It might be like, what Warner Brothers was doing with like Batgirl and like all those kind of stuff, all those canceled movie projects. EA might be doing the same thing. Who knows?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, it's been a while, but I was part of the video game industry for a number of years. And this is not uncommon. This has been happening since the days of the Super Nintendo and even before that, right? Games are announced. We just get wind of them much early on in the development. And so, how many games got canceled and we never even knew about them that were always, behind studios or behind curtains and that sort of thing? A lot of them, really. So It's not uncommon. But of course, this one hits home because it is Star Wars, because it's a Mandalorian type game. And riding on the hype of the Mandalorian itself, especially now that we've got a movie coming out, it just feels like something's not adding up here. But I guess maybe we'll find out later down the road. Maybe we'll never know at this point. We'll just have to wait and see. All right. Well, enough of that. Let's move on to I guess this topic, which is KOTOR. KOTOR has had a very tumultuous kind of history. Now, this is the KOTOR remake, Knights of the Old Republic remake. It was actually owned by Aspire Theater. It was being developed by Aspire Studios, which did the Battlefront collection that we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes. It was then sold to a company called Saber. You and I reported that it was dead. It came back to life, much like Revan, and now it's been sold. So it was dead officially, I guess, I don't know, a few months ago. And just recently here, they've now sold, Saber has sold this to I think it was a German development company, if I'm not mistaken, but for $500 million. And so the headline here is that it's alive again. This KOTOR remake is still going to happen. I think there were two people, at least, they cited in this Bloomberg interview here or article that said that, yeah, we're back on it. I don't know how two people are going to crank out a game since everyone else is gone, but they've got plans here. I guess the question that I have really is, by the time this game releases, is anyone really going to even care anymore? Or did anyone care to begin with? Because it feels like the people that are most excited about this are all the people like me who've beat this game 8 million times and just kind of want to see the upgraded graphics and play it again. But I don't know. It feels like this thing may not have legs to kind of last through its final release.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. Do like remade games ever do like that well? I remember like a couple of years ago when they remade like GoldenEye and everyone was hyped for it, but like, did it really do that well? Because they're like better first person shooters at this point. It's just people around our age who are just super nostalgic for that N64. We just want it how we had it in our heads, smooth out the graphics a little bit and let us play it now. But like, how many people is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The only one that comes to mind, and probably more recently and relevant, is the Final Fantasy VII Reborn remake, whatever that was. They just released it. It just came out like last month, if I'm not mistaken. And that one wasn't just a repolish. Like they went and did restructured a lot of things. And for that seems to be, something that will pull in new people. But yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of times with these remakes, it's people feeling that nostalgia, wanting to go back and play it and go, okay, I've got an updated system. Maybe they'll clean up some of the anti-aliasing and some of the graphics and all that. But I mean, it's not getting a full blown makeover, 100% redone kind of thing. They usually and very rarely, if ever, do that. So it's a good point. I don't know. It's nice to know that this game has still got legs and still living in some capacity. But I mean, my money's going down that it's going down. It probably won't make it out here again. I don't know. We'll see. I do love the game though. Yeah. All right. So the news is just going to get worse from here as far as video games. So if you have not been keeping up on recent events in terms of Star Wars Battlefront, they've released, and but I mean Aspire has released the Battlefront Classic Collection. It was released on March 14th. So this has only been 3 days out now officially. You can kind of see we're running the trailer here. This was a parts Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2. It had the 64-player maps that you could play online. It was being released on Steam, PlayStation 5, Xbox. They had some new maps, some skins added into it as well. $35. And this was like, everybody was like talking about this for like the last month, talking about how amazing this was going to be. I know some of our peers are out there streaming this thing with their supporters, and everybody was revved up. And they released this thing as kind of an early pilot back before the 14th. I want to say it was like 3 or 4 days just before. And it was absolutely trashed by everybody that played it. Because for one, and then I can only speak to the PC. I haven't really looked into the PlayStation or the console products yet. But at least for the PlayStation, for the PC, there was about 10,000 people that had bought this game and had signed up to play online. When the game launched, there were only 3 servers. So if you do the math, at 64 people and 3 servers, you're only serving about, I don't know what the math is, like 300 people, right? At most, whatever it is. And then and that was just people were talking about 45-minute wait times. You get in, the matches were over like in 2 or 3 seconds. Some people couldn't respawn after you died. So it was kind of like a one and done type thing. I saw there was one person that posted that you could spawn on the Republic side, but there was nobody spawning on the Separatist side. So it was kind of a one-sided battle. Like there was nobody to fight in that entire. It's been an absolute disaster. And the recent update as of the 16th, so just yesterday, I believe, was that, they course, I think if I have it here, let me see if I pulled it up. No, here's the article kind of talking about that. But no, I don't have it pulled up right now. But one of the guys, the PR relations guy, came out and said, hey, we're aware of the issues. We're doing everything we can. They've spun up some additional servers. But if you look at the Steam rating right now, it's actually dropped from 20% now to 19% with like 5,500 reviews. It's not getting any better. So I don't mean to like beat a dead horse here, but this has been a very big disappointment for me personally, because I was looking forward to this. Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts? How did they screw this up? What do you think happened here?
Just underestimating, I guess, how popular this is going to be. Like, I forget who the quote was from, but like, a bad game, a good game can get delayed, but a bad game, if you release it, is always going to be a bad game. And this is just going to leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth for the entirety of this. I don't know how many people you're ever going to win back if they like fix the whole server issue, in like, say, the next month or so. How many people are just like, nah, I'm good. And you're going to continue to just have these problems of like, not being able to have long enough battles.
Yeah. And that's the case. Like, I was so gung-ho about this, and I wanted to do the same thing. I think Jonesy and I were actually talking about trying to do some kind of a stream or invite people that support the show on. Let's get everybody on and do like a 64 player. I want nothing to do with this game right now. And I love this game. I love both of these games, honestly. But yeah, it's just not ready. So, I mean, maybe things will improve, but I think people are going to move on. I think you're going to be stuck with the people that, again, have that nostalgia feeling. And, is that going to be enough for you to keep? The question I have, though, is like, okay, even if you didn't, like, if you were just underestimating, at some point, someone should be watching how many purchases are being made and going, oh, wait a second, we've got more than 400 people, which is stupid to begin with, too. Like, how did you not think more than 400 people would buy this? But let's just say at 5,000, someone said, hey, man, we've got 5,000 people that have bought this, and we still only have 3 servers. You think we should spin these up ahead? No, we're fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Okay, we're at 7,000 now. How about now? Nope. Stay the course. Hold the line. 3 servers should be enough, kind of thing. It just feels like at some point there should have been some kind of a gate or metric that said, we probably need to spin up additional servers at a minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who, like, where those decisions are made or who makes those decisions. Like, there must be somebody just penny pinching and like, oh no, it'll be fine. Meanwhile, there's a guy in IT going like, no, this will not be fine.
Yeah, we're dying over here. We're
This would
dying.
be a disaster. That'd be fine.
Yeah. And there's a
The
number.
online part isn't that important to this game, right?
Well, and that's kind of what that's in a number of in one of these mini articles and people that I've like read their reviews or testimonies from, someone called that out and was like, this is really the big selling point, was this 64 player online bit, right? How did you not put your main focus on that? Like, yeah, I guess people are going to go back and play the single player and do the missions and stuff like that. But I mean, this is where it was at. For $35, I'd love to get 64 players online and make 32 of those people that we know or have big groups that play together. Yeah, it's mind blowing as far as the execution on this one. So they dropped the ball on that one big time. Hopefully it recovers. But again, I don't know. Like you said, they may have lost some folks here that probably won't be coming back ever again. Okay, now let's move on to, let's get away from the video game stuff. No updates on Hunters. Let's talk about Star Wars movies. And this one is another case of, okay, so I've got two sides of a coin here for me as far as the Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron. Jonesy and I have talked about this already, probably ad nauseum on the main show at some point. But the long story short is, for those of you that did not know, several years ago, Patty Jenkins came out during one of the Disney, investor calls or something. I forget now what it was. It was almost 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And they spun up this little teaser video, which I've got right here, where she's kind of rollerblading. And she gets in the back of her truck or whatever. And like, this was actually pretty exciting stuff, because if you listen to it, she tells this very heartfelt story about how her father was a fighter pilot. And for the longest time, she'd always wanted to do, a very, like the most realistic, I think is her words, realistic fighter movie ever done. And she had looked around, had never found anything until now. And she, puts up the skates. She pulls out a Rebel pilot kind of helmet. And we last see her in this little kind of teaser thing walking off towards an X-Wing that's been parked here on this little runway. And this got everybody super excited. Well, since then, this movie has been up and down. It's been canceled. She's been back on. There's been rumors about it. To be fair, we've never had anything official. Yes, Kathleen Kennedy came out and said, hey, Patty Jenkins is working with us. They announced it at that investor call, but they never have come out officially and said, this movie is coming out and here's the date, right? It's coming out for this particular year. There's been projections and all that sort of thing. And what happened was Wonder Woman 3, she was contractually binded to do Wonder Woman 3. She ended up having to, I guess, pause or maybe even officially cancel, I guess, or unofficially cancel this movie so that she could do Wonder Woman 3. And she had always had the intent of coming back and possibly doing Rogue Squadron after Wonder Woman 3. Well, enter James Gunn, who then scrapped all of the current and existing DC projects. And suddenly she was like, hey, my calendar has opened up. Like, I've got nothing going on. Why don't I start talking to you guys about it? So she's been talking to them. I think as part of the negotiations, she agreed to come up with at least a script. And I think now, at least according to this recent, this is the article here from Jedi News, but I think she said this over on a podcast, if I'm not mistaken. But she basically said here, let me just kind of read this real quick. She said, so when I left Star Wars to do Wonder Woman 3, I thought maybe I'll come back to Star Wars after Wonder Woman 3. So we did a deal for that to happen, started a deal, but I thought I was doing Wonder Woman. When that went away, Lucasfilm and I were like, oh, well, we got to finish this deal. We finished a deal, and as a strike was happening, so I owe them a draft now, and we'll see what happens from there. Then she goes on, it's hard. They have a hard job in front of them of what's the first movie they're going to do. They have other directors who've been working, but I am back on doing Rogue Squadron, and we'll see what happens. We need to develop, a story where we're both happy with it. So, long story short, Rogue Squadron is back on the table. I guess for this one here, this feels like just the natural ebb and flow of movies. This happens all the time where people come in, directors, writers, they leave, new ones come in, new ones go out. I think it's weird for us as Star Wars fans because we've never really experienced that during the Lucasfilm because he was the dude. Yeah. But it's not uncommon for movie companies to do this. So I don't know. Is this a big deal? Does anybody, do you personally care? I mean, how excited would you be able to see a Rogue Squadron, I should say, fighter pilot kind of movie come out?
Yeah, like, Star Wars Top Gun is, I think, what everybody was saying. Like, this is going to be Top Gun, but it's going to be X-Wing fighters. I think everybody was super interested, but at the same time, when that rollerblading trailer thing came out, this is off the heels of the first Wonder Woman, right? Then Wonder Woman 1984 came out, and everyone's like, oh, do we
Yeah.
do we want this? And it's weird how like that narrative is that you make just like a bad blockbuster movie, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, do we actually want this person to do this? Like the same thing with Taika Waititi, right? Like when Thor Ragnarok came out, everyone's like, oh man, it's the hottest director, we want him to do all our stuff. Then like, you know, he was doing, I guess, episodes of Mandalorian, and they were setting him up to do a Star Wars movie. Then Thor 4 comes out, and everyone's like, oh, do we do we want him to do a Star Wars movie? He might screw it up. So it's just, I don't know, it's funny how one bad movie kind of changes things. And like for DC, it's been a lot of bad movies, but yeah, it just kind of felt like the narrative was like, oh, Wonder Woman 84 sucked, so maybe she shouldn't do the Star Wars movie anymore. But I guess it's back.
Yeah.
Maybe
We'll see. Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, again, I don't know that she's got anything going on, so why not do that, right? Until we have an official release or an official release year and statement by Lucasfilm or Disney, then to me, it's just like any other movie. Yeah, we can talk about it, and it's fun to talk about, and it's sad if it doesn't happen, but I'm not going to get all strung out if it doesn't, or you know, they switch people and nothing else. It sounds like she's got a script that she'll turn over, so the movie probably will happen. It may not be Patty Jenkins directing it; could be somebody else, right?
And I'm always just like gung ho for, you know, when they explore other parts of the Star Wars universe, right? Like as much as I love, you know, Jedi stuff, like when we have like a story that has probably nothing to do with Jedis, cool. Let's do that for a little
bit. Yeah. The only other thing I will add is when people, I guess maybe the counter argument, and it's not really a counter argument more than anything. It's just, you know, there are a lot of directors that make fantastic movies, and then they poop out a stinker, right? Or a couple of stinkers that they go on a run. And I think as movie executives these days, they at least look at it as, okay, they did it once. They caught, you know, the lightning in a bottle one time. And there's always that potential that they could do it again. And so I don't think she's had a bad run of movies, enough of a bad run movies. Wonder Woman 3, yeah, wasn't my favorite, or Wonder Woman 2, sorry, wasn't my favorite movie. Honestly, it was okay at best. But yeah, at best. But it probably wasn't enough to kind of tarnish the potential that they see in her cranking out a really good movie, like, you know, especially around Rogue Squadron, and especially that's something that feels pretty personal, and very close to her heart. Even Spielberg, like, who I think is the greatest director of at least all time, maybe at least at my time, you know, he put out 1941, which wasn't the greatest movie, and he had a couple other ones in there that were very questionable. So yeah, I mean, there is the potential that it could stink, but I'm excited. I'd love to see this. I'd love to see you know, like you said, a Top Gun meets Star Wars, or some kind of a, you know, World War II kind of, which is kind of what I was thinking, since that's kind of what Lucasfilm based a lot of the dogfighting that we see in Star Wars on. Something to that effect, with a true story about a pilot and just kind of their journey would be, I mean,
there's a volleyball scene on Tatooine, like, it'd be great.
Right. All the flexing with the watches and checking time, the chronos, sorry. And we don't have those in Star Wars. We'll get back to Billy D. Williams. Well, no, let's talk about Billy D. Williams next. This is movie news. We'll make this quick. Somebody had asked him recently if he'd be willing to come back and do Star Wars again as, of course, Lando Calrissian. He said, pay me a lot of money and I'll come back. And so, I mean, the quote itself is funny because, you know, at this point, we always joke about a lot of actors just are in it for the money, right? You can get them to do anything. Look at Gary Busey and a number of other actors out there. But I don't know. No offense to Billy D. Williams. I mean, he's pretty frail at this point. If you see him when he's doing interviews and stuff, it doesn't feel like he's really in the best of health and condition. I don't know if I would want him back to see him on screen. I'd almost prefer, and I'm not trying to be sacrilegious, but I'd almost prefer somebody like Donald Glover coming back, or doing an actor and kind of refacing Billy D. Williams in some way. I mean, as long as dude got his paycheck for that work, right? Or for the likeness and all that. Yeah. I think that it's a win-win situation, but I don't know if I want Billy D. Williams back. But I mean, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up. He's 86 years old.
Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to think back to, I guess the last time we saw him as Lando would have been in Rise of Skywalker, right? And that was like a cute little cameo-ish kind of role for him. And I don't know, maybe leave it that. Like you said, just let Donald Glover take over the role from now on, unless they really need like an older Lando for a scene. But even then, like whatever, like It's good. You played the role well. But I get it on his part too, right? Like he's probably saying like, well, I'm not going to say no. If they'd give me all of the money in the world, like I'm not saying no.
Well, he even says his response concisely, "Pay me a lot of money and I will sell my soul," was his exact quote. So he's not shy about it. So I mean, more power to him. All right, we'll see. I mean, you make a good point. Like I can see him showing up in, you know, the Rey Skywalker movie, right? Maybe they fast forward 10 years from now, or 10 years from there, 20 years from there, and we get an old, frail, aging Lando Calrissian, and he fits the part. But anything beyond that, though, I don't know. I've seen him in more recent interviews, and of course, his book released just a couple months ago. He didn't look like he was in the best of health and condition, but you know, hopefully that's not the case. Okay, let's talk Star Wars TV next, and we'll start with the Acolyte. And so Collider has come out and said that Acolyte now is looking to launch June 5th, 2024. That is like 2.5 months away. We're not far away from that, right? 3.5, whatever that is. But I think this is, I guess, one thing that stood out for this was, this is a much sooner than we were talking about it were releasing. Originally, kind of the way the calendar was laid out and the way they were presenting things at Celebration was that we were going to get the other movie first. The other television show with Jude Law, right? We were going to get that first, and then we would get Acolyte. Now that feels like we've reversed this. This is coming out sooner. Of course, this is all post the strikes, which went on for a pretty long time, and I'm excited that this would come out sooner. I think it makes more sense lined up on the heels of the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace, since, we kind of have that. This is what happens right before the Phantom Menace kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. What do you, I guess, why do you think it was moved up? Do you think there was any other reason behind that? Why it was moved ahead of Skeleton Crew? Or
I'm assuming the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, they're not in the same time era, right?
No, Skeleton Crew takes place like during the Mandoverse, and this takes place.
This is like High Republic, the Acolyte's High Republic era.
Right.
I mean, considering they don't have anything necessarily to do with each other, I'm assuming they're just going with whatever is done first, right? Because like you said, we had the strikes and everything was delayed, and like if they're just looking at the calendar and like, oh, we're actually almost done. Like we've done the filming, we've done all the CGI, we've done all the post-production, and looks like the Acolyte's going to be done first. You might as well just release that first instead of waiting.
Yeah.
Maybe there's still more touch-ups for Skeleton Crew. Maybe there's still other stuff. Who knows? But I'm just assuming that just looking at that is just like, oh, they're probably just done, and they're like, let's just release it first.
Yeah. Yeah. On top of that, there's also related to Acolyte, there's an interview that was done here by Magazine C. I've never heard of these guys. MagazineC.com. They landed this interview with Amandla Sternberg, who is the primary actress on the Acolyte. And there's a lot in here about her personal life and that kind of thing, so we won't focus on that. But what I did find interesting in this article, when she was talking about the premise of this, the context of what was going on during Star Wars, the High Republic specifically in this television show, she says about the Acolyte, in the context of Star Wars universe, it is a time of great peace, theoretically. It is also a time of institution, and it's a time in which conceptions around the Force are very strict. And I think what we're trying to explore within our show is when an institution has a singular conception of how power can be used, we try to provide a lot of different perspectives and answers to that question. The idea is to kind of honor the ethos of Star Wars and ideas around the Force, and also challenge them, hopefully harmoniously. Now, there's a lot in there, and we're not going to pick apart everything in there, but if we know kind of where the High Republic is trending, so the High Republic is all the books and comics that have been going on as part of Project Luminous now for the better part of 3 years. And we're about to be finished with phase 3, which is the last phase. Well, we're not about to, but we're at the very beginning of phase 3, and we're going to be ending this. The trajectory is one that for the Jedi, at least the way we've been speculating, Lauren and I, even in Jonesy as well, what we've been speculating is that at some point the Jedi are going to do a lot of things that lead us to the dogmatic Jedi that we see at the very beginning of the Phantom Menace, where they can't have connections or relationships. They've got, well, I won't get into all the details because there's a lot there that they've already kind of given us the backstory on why the Jedi are who they are during the Phantom Menace. But it does sound like, from what she's saying here, is that they're very strict. I think we're going to see, if not from the end of the High Republic Phase 3 itself, from the Acolyte itself, we're going to see a very much more, again, dogmatic, a very strict kind of Jedi way of thinking, similar, again, what we saw in the Phantom Menace. But I guess any thoughts or anything that comes to mind around the concepts of the Force, or when you hear that quote, what she could possibly be talking about or implying?
Yeah, I'm just curious if it's just from with the in the story she's talking that they're going to be challenging, like you said, like the reasons why the Jedi are so strict about things by the time we get to the Phantom Menace, if that's what they're exploring, or if it's like the concept from a storytelling perspective. Because like remember when the Phantom Menace came out and they started mentioning midichlorians and everyone's like, what the hell are you talking about? And like just changed the whole idea of what the Force is, and a lot of people freaked out. And you think of like the last couple movies like Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi before that, when like Last Jedi's whole thing is like anybody can have the Force, and it's not, you don't have to have lineage and whatever. But then the next movie is like, actually, but she's a Palpatine, so she actually does have lineage. And it's just like kind of, I don't know, the idea of what makes you stronger within the Force and all those kind of things. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what people push back on and what people are like, oh, all right, I like that.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of maybe it's a combination of both. Not only are they going to be challenging, relationships and that sort of thing in Star Wars, but also, like you said, the midichlorian stuff. It's a topic that even to this day, like when we've been talking here recently about the Bad Batch, right? And they keep calling it M count, and they're very careful about how much they get into the midichlorian kind of concepts and when they speak about them. But yeah, maybe it'd be nice to kind of for them to just pull the Band-Aid off and blow the doors open and really just explore that stuff and be really bold and in their storytelling there from that perspective. That could be another way to read into what she's saying about challenging the ways of the Force kind of thing. So. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Sorry, I know 1UP versus CPU is a pretty close follower of the High Republic 2. It says Elzar and Avar couldn't control themselves, so now they're going to have to tighten up the rules. It's all their fault. That's exactly right. You've got a love story brewing between two characters that are Jedi. One is super powerful, and it looks like they're going to ruin everything for everyone because they're going to probably go to the dark side. But okay, well, that again, June 5th, I think is what we said. So not much longer. I would expect we're going to get something from the Acolyte here pretty soon. If we're only 2.5 months away, 3 months, this is about the time we start getting at least more snippets and people talking about it. I don't know that we'll get a trailer per se, although we had a trailer that was released in Celebration last year. They could release that at some point too, if they wanted. But it's I would expect the media train to really kind of pick up steam here. In the very near future. Okay, before we get to our last thing, I just want to kind of throw up a couple of things here that were recently announced. Tempest Breaker, holy bananas. Brand new audio drama, Phase 3 of the High Republic. You can see here, there's Avar Chris, Lorna D, and Keith Trundis there. So, the three of them together is pretty compelling. I can't wait to get that. That's coming out again December 3rd. We've also got the Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire. So this is I think it's DK Books or DK Publishing that's doing this one. But this is kind of putting together a chronological order picture book of everything that happened in the comics and in the books and in the movies that literally chronicle the rise and fall of the Empire. So everything from what Palpatine did at first to how it all kind of fell apart at the very end. It sounds like a really cool kind of source book. So that'll be out here on July 9th. More High Republic here. We've got the Edge of Balance. This is the last one, I believe. This is the Phase 3 Edge of Balance book. And, of course, it's still following Arkoff. Arkoff is a prominent Jedi during the High Republic. We've seen him in the first two of these mangas, and this is now the third one. Lauren and I just covered the second one here just a couple weeks ago on the main show. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that and you're interested more, go follow that one. And then the last one that was announced here was the Someone Who Loves You book, which is a picture book of the Han and Leia wedding as it was originally, revealed or written about in The Princess and the Scoundrel, which came out in 2022 by Beth Revis. This is, there's the cover right there. It looks really sweet. Again, it's a picture book. It's probably going to show you a lot of all the wedding stuff and, whatever else had happened. It's fun stuff. If you're interested, that'll be out here on December 3rd as well this year. All right, but our last story is This dude, Sam Jackson, back in the news. He did a recent interview. They took a lot of pictures with him. This is all in celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace. But of course, everybody was talking about this because, as you can see right here, he's sitting here posing with his now infamous purple lightsaber. And yeah, in the article, he's sitting here talking about how, hey man, Mace Windu, he could have lived. He's still alive, right? There's no reason to think that he's not dead. He'd love to come back and do this. He's said this before in other interviews as well. So he's just kind of reaffirming that, hey, call me if you need me kind of thing. But I don't know. Do you see Mace Windu coming back? And what's your take on him? I think we may have talked about this already when we talked about the comic, but I don't recall now whether or not, I guess, where you stood on if you felt like he lived or he died at the end there of Revenge of the Sith.
I mean, does anyone really die in this saga?
No, some people, like Shmi Skywalker's dead.
But I'm just saying, like the Emperor was dead, and I'm sure that's a clone. Fair enough. Like Jango Fett, we saw like the head lopped off. All right, okay.
But you didn't see the head in the helmet, and when he picked the helmet up, no head fell out. So
that's true. Okay, we literally saw Darth Maul get cut in half, and he came back. So. Yeah. Mace Windu getting shot out of a window and we never see the body. Yeah. All right. Maybe.
I'm with you. Like Jonesy, I think Jonesy's, Lauren is in favor of him surviving. I don't think Jonesy has been historically. Maybe he's come around to it. But yeah, I'm down with it. Like I'd love to see his story come back. I forgot to scroll through the other pictures here. Look at him. He's just having the grandest of times here.
I mean, it sounds like he wants to do it as long as there's a good story. Sure. But if it's like, you start off the episode and it's like somehow Mace Windu has returned. It's like, no, man, no, let's not do that again. Yeah. Give us something. Give us a reason.
Yeah. So where Lauren and I kind of differ is where I want Mace Windu to be is very different than hers. Like she wants him to come back and I think kind of be the Jedi that he has always been. I wanted to see him kind of more as a scruffy, almost a kind of crazy Jedi, almost like Master Sabayoth from Heir to the Empire, where he's not the same person that he was. Mm-hmm. Maybe he has the best intentions, but the way he's going about things, almost in revenge of what happened, or that kind of thing. I think would be a much more, I guess personally, would be a much more intriguing kind of persona for him to have post. I want him to be kind of messed up after what happened, right?
You're saying you want him like an eye patch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it'd be the other eye. It won't be the Nick Fury eye.
Yeah, they'll switch it up on us, so we don't think about it. But yeah, you're right. Especially with Jedi, when Jedi are concerned, you think about the people that are non-Jedi that don't have Force powers. A lot of them do die. The Lars family didn't really live, but we did see a body. But like the Jedi have a tendency to live through some of this stuff. I mean, we've seen other Jedi since the movies came out that have jumped from really far heights or have fallen from really far heights, and they've lived in some way. So I think it's totally plausible.
I mean, I almost forgot about like Princess Leia got shot out of that spaceship, right? And we thought, like, I remember like watching that movie and we're thinking, oh, this is how they end her. Nope.
Nope. Came right back.
Using her space wizard magic to come
flying through the yeah.
And so Mace Windu, who was at the time the most powerful fighter of any Jedi, couldn't have done that.
I'm with you. Like I'm the choir here. I'm totally down with it. Now that said, I'm looking at the comments here. Gary says they are running out of background characters to franchise, so they need to get on it while Samuel can still move around. Jonesy says, I think the most compelling story for Mace is the one where he's still dead. So I guess he's not come around to the idea of Mace Windu coming back, but I certainly have. And I don't know. We'll see. I don't think there's anything here, honestly. I mean, if they were going to start something now, it would still be another probably 2 years minimum before we actually saw it. Could they do something more in books and comics? Yeah, I think that would probably be the easiest route. But Sam Jackson coming back, yeah, it's probably going to be a while before we see something material there.
Jackson now?
What's that?
So he's 75 years old, man.
I know, man. These guys are getting way up there. It's kind of scary. That's
I'm
kind
just
of what
trying to think,
Gary's talking about here.
What was the Marvel TV show? Was it Secret Invasion?
Secret Invasion, yeah.
Yeah, that was terrible. Like he wasn't moving around very well, I don't think.
Yeah, he was also and he had some action sequences in the Marvels.
Yeah, even in like the Captain Marvel movie, what, from a couple of years ago? How I forget how long ago that was, when he was playing a younger version of himself. He still wasn't moving around that great. So it's like, do we really need him to be old Mace Windu?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot they can do with, stunt doubles and CGI these days, but yeah. I mean, get while the getting's good, right? So if you're going to do it, let's do it. Let's get it over with, kind of thing. All right, well, we'll end the show there, man. I know that was a lot because we had, I guess, basically a whole month worth of stuff. And we actually weeded out some things. Like, I had to cut some stuff out. So I'm like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that because we don't have time. But yeah, we'll be back here in 2 weeks before 2 weeks again for another show. So before we guys want to say, well, thank you, Ed, for, of course, being here, as always. And I want to say thank you to all everybody that joined on the live stream. Stephanie, One Up versus CPU, JJ Skywalker, Music Train, My Star Wars Guys, Matthew Hugh, Skyby, Lauren, Jonesy, Gary Smith joined us there close to the very end, and I thought there was someone else. So there were a number of other people that were in the background. So thank you, everybody who joined us again for the live stream. You can head out to cantinacast.com/YouTube, like, subscribe, and feel free to comment on anything down here. We'll try to reply to the comments as they come in. Be happy to do that. So, all right, stick around at the top of the hour. Jonesy and I will be back for our Patreon members, and we're going to be talking about The Believers. Again, that's 1 year later, revisiting a topic that we covered about a year ago, and just kind of providing an update on where we think things are, and how much did we get right a year ago, and speculate on where we think it's going to go from here. All right, that's do it for us, and we'll see you guys here in about 2 weeks.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.